By 2 in the afternoon, everything feels like urgent drama. Your to-do list looks like a cliff edge, and choosing the next step feels impossible. That's decision fatigue, an exhaustion of executive resources that makes even small choices feel heavy. Let's name the cognitive hurdle first. We all run into points in the day where decisions thin out our mental reserves. You open your inbox and freeze. You stand at the fridge and everything looks wrong. You stare at your calendar and your prefrontal cortex starts asking for a break. This is the panic of the blank decision. Routine choices become decision moments and your working memory gets overloaded. Now the psychological why. Decision fatigue is rooted in ego depletion and the limits of our executive function. Every choice, no matter how tiny, uses a sliver of willpower. The prefrontal cortex juggles priorities, suppresses impulses, and manages attention. But it's a finite system. Add in cortisol spikes from stress, falling dopamine signals when novelty wears thin, and the whole process becomes noisier. That's why judges grant more paroles after breaks, and shoppers make poorer picks late in the day. When our cognitive bandwidth is low, we default to the path of least resistance, often impulses or indecision, rather than intentional choice. Here's the low-friction pivot. Instead of asking your tired brain to decide in the moment, we set defaults and pre-commitments ahead of time, so decisions are already made. Defaults act like autopilot for your day. Pre-commitment devices lock in an action, so you don't waste energy second-guessing. They create psychological safety. The parts of your cognitive system that worry about making the right move can rest. We specifically favor voice-first, AI-supported workflows because typing is a barrier, while speaking is a flow state. When you can talk your thoughts out loud and have them captured, tagged, and prioritized automatically, you get neural unloading without friction. An AI recommendation engine then studies your schedule, habits, and energy patterns to suggest what to do next. Executive support that whispers a clear next move when your brain is fuzzy. How to start? With as little activation energy as possible. First, identify your decision hotspots. Notice where you stall: lunch, inbox, or the moment before deep work. Second, pre-commit in advance by picking a default action for each hotspot. Third, automate those defaults using an assistant that captures your voice and applies natural language understanding. Fourth, review and tweak weekly so defaults stay aligned with your life and energy rhythms. For example, you might decide that lunch is always a pre-planned meal from Sunday's prep. Inbox time is a 20-minute flagged email sprint at 9, and deep work begins with a 3-minute ritual. Feed those defaults into your task manager verbally. Say them out loud and let the system file them for you. Over time, the AI adapts, guarding against the biases that creep in when your willpower is low, and updating your defaults as your routine changes. We've seen this shift restore calm for people juggling multiple roles. One user, a solo designer and mother, described how midday overwhelm used to derail her. By recording categories and defaults into her task manager, voice first, simply spoken, her chaotic list became a neat cue. The recommendation engine suggested the next item during low-energy moments, and she reported fewer panic episodes and more forward momentum. This isn't about building a rigid schedule that crushes spontaneity. It's about creating intentional scaffolding, so you can spend less energy on routine choices and more on meaningful work. Defaults and AI become tools for neural unloading. They reduce cognitive friction, protect your dopamine loops from needless depletion, and increase psychological safety so you can make the big decisions when you actually have the bandwidth. If you want to try this with as little setup as possible, pick one hotspot today. Speak a default into your task manager, treat it as a preset, and let a recommendation engine suggest your next step when you need it. Small, consistent defaults lead to significant savings in cognitive bandwidth. For a deeper read on the full 4-step process, check out the article on the NXT blog. The post walks through practical examples and a short weekly review you can use to keep defaults useful rather than rigid. Visit the blog and try talking your defaults into place.